Hi, my name is Alexandra Sadowski. Today, I'll be talking about history's great turning points. First, we will talk about World War I, then we will be talking about the Mexican Revolution. Each of these events had a huge impact on the history of the world and its people. I'll be talking about World War I. People call it the war to end all wars. It first started when the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand catapulted the world against the Central and Allied powers of Europe. At the outbreak of fighting in 1914, the United States remained on the sidelines of World War I, adopting the policy of neutrality favored by President Woodrow Wilson, while continuing to engage in commerce and shipping with European countries on both sides of the conflict. However, it became hard for commerce and shipping between Europe and the United States. German U-boats then sunk one of the commercial vessels, which made the U.S. join the fight against them. The boat liner Lusitania, traveling from New York to Liverpool, England, carrying hundreds of American passengers on board was a disgrace. Germany sunk four more U.S. merchant ships the following month, and on April 2nd, Woodrow Wilson appeared before Congress and called for a declaration of war against Germany. Let's explore how the U.S. entered World War I. Zimmerman note and German attacks on three U.S. ships in mid-March. Then this led Wilson to ask Congress for a declaration of war. Wilson then decided to enter the war to help design the peace settlement. Wilson viewed the war as an opportunity to destroy German militarism. After the war's end at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, Allied leaders stated their desire to build a post-war world that would safeguard itself against future conflicts of such a devastating scale. World War I was thought to be the war to end all wars. As the years passed, hatred of the Versailles Treaty and its authors settled into a smoldering resentment in Germany that would, 2 decades later, be counted among the causes of World War II. The significance of this war for the United States was huge. It made the United States the world's foremost economic and political power. The U.S. emerged from the war as a chief lender and arguably the world's strongest and most vibrant economy. Now, let's talk about the Mexican Revolution. The Mexican Revolution grew out of the belief that a few wealthy landowners could no longer continue the old ways of Spanish colonial rule. A feudal-like system called La Encomienda. That system needed to be replaced by a modern one in which those who worked the land should extract its wealth through their labor. Now, let us visit the leaders and their great significance in the Mexican Revolution. One of the leaders was known as Madero, who ran against Diaz, the Mexican general and dictator. He wrote the La Sucesión Presidencial, which was written in 1908. It criticized Diaz. He wanted a true democratic reform for Mexico. He wanted political change because he wanted to replace Diaz as the president. In 1910, a man named Villa joined Francisco Madero's uprising against the dictator of Mexico, Porfirio Diaz. During the rebellion, Villa, who lacked a formal education but had learned to read and write, displayed his talents as a soldier and organizer. Combined with his intimate knowledge of the land and the people of northern Mexico, those gifts enabled him to place a division of trained soldiers under his command at Madero's disposal. Villa used guerrilla warfare. Emiliano Zapata was an accomplished guerrilla leader during the Mexican Revolution, and he strongly opposed the hacienda system that characterized much of rural Mexican life. Fundamental land reform was enshrined in the Mexican Constitution of 1917, partly because of his efforts. Venustiano Carranza was a Mexican landowner and politician who served as President of Mexico from 1917 until his assassination in 1920 during the Mexican Revolution. While the Mexican Revolution was aimed at ensuring a fair way of living for the farming classes, many disagreed. Its primary effects were mass participation of people in competing groups, resistance from peasants, workers, Indians, and mestizos, brutal civil war for 10 years, and some reform and stability at the end with the Constitution of 1917. The Constitution of 1917 defines citizenship, organizes a government, mandates land reform, and enumerates basic human rights for all Mexicans. Divided into 10 thematic titles, the Constitution lists human rights, defines national citizenships, outlines associated rights, and specifies the freedoms of foreigners residing in the country. It established the government, public service, social welfare, and Mexico City as the capital, with the federal district as a separate entity, apart from state jurisdiction. This constitution applies to all people of Mexico, and it helps them have basic rights and liberties today. And now we will talk about the big historical questions. The big three lessons the United States learned from the war and the Mexican Revolution are that all people should be granted basic rights, treated equally, and that wars are inhumane. Since the Germans did not treat the people of the world fairly, they were put down and forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles, an embarrassment to Germany. The Mexican people were denied certain rights and forced to partake in the La Incomedia system, forcing them into indentured servitude. Every person in the world should be treated equally. Both the Mexican Revolution and the First World War were inhumane and brutal. So many lives were lost to keep democracy alive where they live. The United States has learned to make sure that all its citizens are equal and have basic human rights. They also learned that war is not a good way to solve the world's problems. Because of the Mexican Revolution and the First World War, people can now be guaranteed rights and treated equally. They know that war is not the answer to 3 lessons that were learned due to the two turning points in history. These topics impact us today by allowing basic rights for Mexicans, allowing land to reform, and having an organized government. It impacted the United States by allowing the country to become the most economically powerful country in the world. There are many issues, challenges, and successes in the U.S. to this day, such as how people who come to this country can be denied certain rights. Also, we see how there are still people fighting each other because of their race. They are hated for voicing their opinions, which is a contradiction to the freedom of speech we are allowed. These challenges create a burden on the American society. These challenges were seen in the First World War and the Mexican Revolution. The United States will forever be burdened by the successes and issues presented by the 2 wars. Thank you for listening to our news broadcast. Have a good night.